Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here with some breaking news. If you guys are fans of the show Welcome to Sweetie Pies, which used to air on the OWN network, and it covered the family of Robbie Montgomery, who was a background singer for Ike and Tina Turner, and she has a popular soul food restaurant brand called Sweetie Pies out of St. Louis, Missouri. Well, I used to recap this show, and I'll drop the link to the playlist in this video. But it was either the final season or the second to the last season, one of her grandsons was murdered. And, they were trying to find out who killed him. This had to be probably 4 years ago, maybe. But anyway, the breaking news is that her son, Tim, whose real name is James Timothy Norman, he actually has been arrested today in connection with the murder of her grandson. And so let's go ahead and get into this story. It says James Timothy Norman of Sweetie Pies fame is facing federal charges alleging he conspired with an exotic dancer in the murder of his 18-year-old nephew, Andre Montgomery. The 41-year-old son of the legendary restaurant owner, Robbie Montgomery, was arrested this morning at his home in Jackson, Mississippi, according to a statement from the U.S. Attorney. Norman, who starred with his family in the show Welcome to Sweetie Pies, had feuded with his mother over money in recent years after she sued him for opening restaurants under the Sweetie Pies brand without her permission, according to court records. And it was that dispute that actually ended the show. I guess Oprah was like, I ain't getting caught up in all this drama. We'll just end the show and y'all can move on. Because Tim was out there opening restaurants all over, like in California. He opened like 2 or 3 different brands in California. Then he started a food truck. He's opened a restaurant in Houston. And so he was just doing his own thing. And she ended up having to sue him to get him to, infringing on her brand and to stop opening these businesses. And then you guys also may remember Tim, because him and Jennifer from the Basketball Wives franchise, remember she was married to the basketball player, and then her and Tim ended up hooking up, and everybody dragged Jennifer, okay, when she broke up with Tim, and she had to get a restraining order from him, and just all kind of craziness was going on. So Jennifer, we owe you an apology, because we thought you were you were out there chasing the bag like you're always doing, but we should have believed you when you said that Tim was stalking you and crazy. So anyway, back to the story. It says it was a messy public spat, but federal authorities say Norman executed a far more sinister conspiracy to have his teenage nephew killed in 2016. According to the criminal complaint unsealed today, Norman had taken out $450,000 in life insurance policies on Andre Montgomery in 2014, and he was the sole beneficiary. Yeah, he'd need to go to jail for a very long time. In 2016, Norman was living in Los Angeles. Phone records obtained by investigators showed that leading up to Andre Montgomery's murder, Norman and a Memphis-based dancer named Taria Ellis headed to St. Louis and communicated over burner phones. Ellis also started contacting Montgomery, sending him her Instagram account handle, Alexis the Great, and texting that she would be visiting St. Louis. Quote, "I'm on my way in town," end quote. She wrote him in an email on March 10th, 2016, according to court records. 3 days later, Norman flew into St. Louis and booked a room at the Chase Park Plaza Hotel. The next day, March 14th, Ellis contacted Montgomery to figure out where he was. According to the complaint, cell phone records showed that he texted her the address of a house, 3964 Natural Bridge Avenue in the city. Ellis then called Norman. That night at 8:02 p.m., Montgomery was shot to death at the house on Natural Bridge, and investigators believe Ellis was there. Location data from her burner phone put her at the scene, and in one of Montgomery's final phone calls, he spoke to his girlfriend, who later told investigators she could hear a woman's voice in the background. And I'm trying to think if he was dating Jennifer at the time, because I know Jennifer was on the show when he had those restaurants, when he was opening those restaurants up out in Los Angeles. So she might be the girlfriend that they're referring to. And so it says 1 minute after the 18-year-old was shot, Ellis made another call to Norman. Quote, despite being at the scene of Montgomery's murder at 8:02 p.m., Ellis's first phone call was not to the police, but rather to Norman at 8:03 p.m., at which time her phone location data showed she was driving in a direction consistent with her returning home in Memphis, Tennessee. End quote, the criminal complaint says. Phone records would then show the phone moving south along Interstate 55. Norman's phone showed him flying back to Los Angeles, arriving early the morning after the killing. That same day, March 15, 2016, both the burner phones went dark, authorities said. Back in Memphis, Ellis began depositing money, $3,020 in a checking account that previously had a negative balance, and another $4,340 in a savings account opened the same day. On March 17, 2016, she deposited another $1,900. On March 22, 2016, she and her mother and daughter flew to Los Angeles. There's not much information in the court records about what they did there, but authorities say location data for her mom's phone showed that on at least one occasion they were with Norman. At the end of April 2016, Norman wired Ellis $700. Norman waited a week to try to collect on his murdered nephew's life insurance policy. Authorities say on March 21st, 2016, he called the bank, but he never provided all the documentation required and still hasn't gotten the money, according to court records. So went through all of that, had this poor boy killed, and you still didn't get the money that you were trying to get? That's crazy. It says, let's see, Norman is now being held without bond at a jail in Madison County, Mississippi. He and Ellis have been charged with conspiracy to use interstate commerce facilities in commission of murder for hire, resulting in death. The case is being investigated by St. Louis police and the FBI. And so I'm thinking some murder charges might be on their way, especially if they catch the person that actually pulled the trigger, or was this girl the one that actually killed him. And you guys, if you go back, and I don't know if OWN still has the episodes up, but they actually covered in the last, whichever season it was that they covered him dying, they actually show them going to the place where he was actually shot and killed at. And what makes this even worse is that, St. Louis has a very high crime rate. People, it's one of those cities like Chicago. If you don't get out as soon as possible, chances are you may never get out. And this boy had came to live with his grandmother to be a part of this show, to turn his life around. He was going back to school. Well, I think he did go back to school and graduated from school. And a lot of things are starting to make sense, because there was another grandson on the show named Charles, or was it her nephew? I think Charles was the nephew. And Charles in that last season was so dark, and you can just tell that he was under a lot of duress. He was very stressed out on that last, not episode, but the last season. And now I'm wondering if Charles knew something wasn't right, if Charles knew something was going on, because Charles had actually moved to to California with Tim when Tim was opening up these restaurants. And it was just that last season was just so weird, and you can just tell that the death of Andre had taken such a huge toll on the family in general. And so maybe Charles knew that Tim had left California on the day that Andre was killed, and that he flew back in the middle of the night or whatever. So I'm going to follow this story and see where it goes. But like I said, Jennifer had Tim arrested for harassment and all kind of stuff, stalking her and everything else, and everybody was dogging her out. But I guess she knew a little something too about this case. So if you watched Welcome to Sweetie Pies, leave your comments. Let me know. Like, are you shocked to find out that Tim had something to do with this? Like, I know I'm shocked. I am very, very shocked that he was involved with this. I mean, to just order a hit on your own flesh and blood for money, and then he didn't even get the money. That is just crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. Like I said, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.